Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Today we have the one and only Luke, Australian crypto or Kaspa ambassador, global Kaspa ambassador. Thanks for joining us, Luke.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. Can you just start a little bit by giving us a bit of your background, how you heard about Kaspa and how you became an ambassador, that kind of thing,
Bit
please?
of background on myself. Okay, awesome. So basically a little bit of an overview. I've always been a bit of a nerd, I suppose, So grew up playing a lot of games, playing a lot of MMOs and spending way too much time locked away in the bedroom sort of gaming and stuff like that. And essentially, went through the period of I grew up with the concept of kind of gold online on like games like RuneScape, WoW, and all the little silly sort of things like that. And through those sort of measures, I was, people were talking about different things like Bitcoin, right? And so at the time I started hearing about it, and this was back when I was a teenager, right? So quite young and obviously focused on gaming and stuff like that. Now I gave it a bit of a look, played around with it. Unfortunately, didn't didn't spend much time in it. But it was my first kind of touch on crypto, right? But fast forward from that, in the last bull run, I got involved with mining, right? And I really liked the concept of mining because I had a graphics card, right? I had a gaming computer, had a card that I could just kind of do things with it and play around. And again, sort of people started talking about the concept of kind of gold. And obviously it had that little minor interaction when I was a teenager and started mining. So I mined bits and pieces, mined Ethereum, right? Started, as everyone did during the last bull run, mined lots of different coins, but basically settled on Ethereum right now. Went through the process, grew a farm, started as one, as kind of some people do. It sort of spiraled out of control, went to 6 GPUs, then 12, then 24. Then before I knew it, I had about 100 GPUs in the farm. And it grew from there. And so I was just obviously focusing on mining, and mining was a passion, right? It was cool. But I wasn't really into the full ethos of, the crypto movement, like the cypherpunk movement. Like, what are we actually doing here? What are we trying to do? Right. So that's fine. I went through that, made some good profit in the last bull run with Ethereum. But, when towards the end, when the writing was kind of on the wall about Ethereum moving to proof of stake, because if you guys are probably already aware, obviously they kind of ummed and ahed for a long time. There was never really they spoke about it a lot. They were going, "Oh yeah, we're going to go proof of stake," and every miner was like, "Yeah, right, okay, whatever. We'll just keep mining." And when the writing was on the wall, I started looking around. Right, started mining different things towards the end. Um, what I refer to as the end of Ethereum when it went proof of stake. um, Started mining different things, and yeah, it led me to say, "Well, I've got this farm of GPUs. What should I do with them?" So I started with different projects. I started actually kind of having a little bit more of a philosophical view of like, what am I actually doing here? Like, why are we doing this? What is the point of crypto? What is it trying to solve? A little bit more of searching of what am I trying to achieve here. And I came across many fantastic projects in my sort of research, until I found Casper, right? And so Casper was literally found by myself through YouTubers who were talking about it. So YouTubers just like yourself, right? People, amazing mining YouTubers that I used to follow at the time and still do, who were talking about different projects, and Casper came on the radar. Right? It was a real sort of early one, and I threw a GPU on it, threw a rig on, and it was pretty interesting because for me at the time, as a miner who hadn't really delved really deep into the tech of Casper, the biggest thing for me was just the fact that if I mined Ethereum with an RTX 3070, it was like 130, 140 watts or something. But then when I put it on Casper, it was like half, right? So my literally my energy usage instantly was half, right? And I was like, wow, this is interesting, right? Like, Like essentially half my energy usage of my farm. Of course, it was all speculative at the time, and Casper didn't really have much value at all. But seeing the amount of coins and seeing that, it really kind of tweaked me to go, well, what's going on here? Like, what are they doing? And it I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, joined the Discord, um, started asking questions. And I say this to people, but I think one of the big light bulb moments for me was I was moving some coins around, and um, I moved some Caspa from one wallet to another, right? And at the time, there was only the command line interface wallet. It wasn't any slick, beautiful wallets as we have now, and you have to type in the commands, and you have to make sure you're typing in your wallet correctly and all that sort of stuff. And I hit enter. I switched to the other wallet and it was already there. And I'm like, I'd heard people talking about Casper and speed, but until I saw it, I was like, hey, I need to kind of double check this, right? And yeah, it was like, wow, we're able to send coins at this speed, but using proof of work, right? Now, obviously, there's other projects on proof of stake, but philosophically, after kind of looking into it and seeing where my heart lies, proof of work really is where I align to, right? And so, seeing that, like, wow, I could transfer, coins. Like, let's get deeper into it. And so, I suppose the rest is history, but the biggest takeaway from when I really sort of joined the community and started kind of just asking questions was the caliber of the people in the community was so high, the technical knowledge. Now, I have a technical background, but I'm by no means the same caliber as some of our wizard developers. I'm not a developer
Yeah.
myself, but hearing the way they talk about it and that's the stuff, I was like, holy crap. So, it's a little bit of a journey, but yeah, arrived there with that.
Okay. Thanks, Luke. So
Yeah.
we have viewers at all different stages. Some people are beginners, some people are more tech heads, investors, and people that are hoping, they've put money into Caspa as an investment and they hope that, maybe it will be money in the future. But I know this and the lads know this, but for people who don't know, why do we need Caspa? We have Bitcoin, we have Solana, we have Tron, we have all these other cryptos. Why do we need Caspa, and why do you think Caspa is better than the rest?
That's a good question. So, look, I think the way that I look at it is there's Casper does a lot of things. Like if you take it back to the basics, right? Casper achieves what was previously thought to be impossible, right? Achieving the level of speed and security, but utilizing proof of work and having it, have the level of throughput. 1 block per second in itself is a technical breakthrough, right? Previously, there was no proof of work network or project that was able to achieve that, right? So when I look at it, I say, why do we need Casper, right? So I kind of take it back to the fundamentals, right? So for me, when I was doing the philosophical searching of what I'm doing and why are we doing crypto and what's the purpose here, I mean, I take it back to the cypherpunk roots of Bitcoin, right? You know, the ability to have something that is censorship resistant and decentralized that cannot be controlled by any one entity. Now, obviously, Bitcoin does that, and it does that fantastically well, right? No one can dispute the way in which it does that, right? But there is a lot to be said about the speed, right? And obviously, some people have differing opinions, and it's totally fine. They can see it as a feature, they could see it as a potential negative, see it as you will. But I see, Casper as taking the fundamentals of that security, and bringing it into where we are today, right? So when you look at technology, right, you don't I'm betting all of you guys probably have a phone that's within the last couple of years, right? It's a phone that probably has a camera on it. It's a phone that probably has the ability to look at the internet, but it's not a Nokia 3310, right? Maybe you do use that, maybe you don't. I'm not sure. But I look at it like that, right? Obviously, you can still make phone calls with a Nokia 3310. You can still, send a message and it does the job. But technology evolves, right? And so when I look at Casper, the technology has definitely, taken what we've learned from other protocols, other projects, and applied it in a way that will enable, future growth, right? So I see Casper as kind of like it's the base layer that can be utilized for almost anything. So, without getting super nerdy on you, I'm not sure your sort of technical knowledge of obviously the amazing guests here today, but I see Casper as kind of like TCP/IP, right? So if you're from the networking world or you know anything about IT, TCP/IP is essentially the protocol that underpins what we're using right now, our connectivity between each other. It is a protocol that exists on every single device that networks, right? And it enables communication between devices, right?
Yeah.
Does it care what goes on top of it? No. As long as it goes within the bounds of what it says it needs to do, the packets get delivered and people can utilize it for, delivering HTML or JavaScript or whatever the hell they want to deliver, right? Or some sort of, connectivity. And I see Casper as like that. It's kind of the network that has all of the amazing qualities that we've learned that we need to have on a network, decentralization, security, but it has the speed to enable us to use it like internet-like speed, right? Internet-like speed to purchase, to exchange, to utilize, right? And obviously there's arguments to be said by a lot of different people that say, well, we have that with Solana or we have that with whatever, and that's totally fine if you feel that the qualities of those type of networks that satisfy your requirements, because everyone's net different. Maybe their definition of decentralization or their definition of uptime is different to some other people. But when you look at a network that has those types of qualities but can offer that speed, it's there's so much more there. So when people say, why do we need Casper? I see it as being the network, the base layer that the entire crypto world can sit on top of in the future. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but the amazing developers, the wizards, as many people like to refer to them as, have built this thing and taken their time and considered the options to enable amazing things in the future. So a long-winded answer. I can obviously expand on that a little bit more if you like, but yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, brilliant. No, I work with fiber every day, and the way I look at it, to put it simply, is if somebody has a broadband connection, they're not going to go with one that's slow. They're not going to one that shuts down all the time. They want one that's reliable, is cheap, and fast. So it's kind of the same thing with crypto. But yeah, no, that's
That's
no,
that's
thanks.
it. It's like going from copper to fiber, right? You
Yeah,
you
yeah,
copper is probably in many countries still to this day, right? But the fiber connectivity is, the speed of
yeah,
light, right?
definitely. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, what's going on, Luke? Thanks
Yeah,
for joining.
yeah.
I had my mic on mute. I'm on baby duty right now, so I want to make sure. I think she's finally falling asleep, so I might actually be able to stick around for the whole stream.
Oh, awesome.
But I wanted to ask. This might be like a really simple elementary style question, but like, what is the I guess the protocol, if you will? How do you become a Kaspa ambassador? I think a lot of people out there kind of wonder that because they have one for each. Well, not probably each country, but there's one per region out there. It seems like. And what is the uh, I guess the steps involved? How do you get to that level?
Yeah, no problem. So the ambassador program is a lovely sort of initiative because, as you guys probably are aware, and maybe some of the community may not be, so I'll kind of mention, Casper doesn't spend money on traditional marketing. Where the community obviously can fundraise for marketing initiatives, and if those fundraising initiatives get off the ground, obviously you could see Casper in any sort of marketing initiative, but because there's no allocation of funds to a treasury. There's no marketing budget like some other projects that are spending millions of dollars a month on putting their project on the side of a bus, right? Or putting their project on a billboard in Times Square or whatever, right? And so that leads to many different interesting ways to get the knowledge out there to people. Because I think the biggest thing, and what I found when I first joined the community, as I said before, was that the caliber of the people in the community who are knowledgeable about the tech is I think unlike any other community, right? So one of the initiatives was, let's find people in the community that are definitely keen on taking it kind of to the next level, because obviously there's amazing people on X, people on YouTube, people on all social media platforms who share Casper every day. But there's a series of people that kind of want to take it to the next level. Like, how can we organize events? How can we do meetups? How can we do online streams just like you guys are doing right here? And so the ambassador program was kind of born from that. It was like, invest time and energy in people, nurture those connections, nurture that education that they have, and enable them to go on and genuinely share their passion with others. Unlike the unfortunate sort of situation that has come to be normal in the crypto world, where KOLs are paid to talk about things. Casper, approach it in many different ways, and obviously one of them is ambassador program, right? So focus on finding those people, bring them up. Of course, they're volunteers. We're not paying them. We're not giving them money to say nice things about Casper. And so that every single interaction that they have, whether it's online or in person, they are genuinely sharing their passion. They're saying, "Hey, this is amazing technology that you really need to look at," right? So I suppose there's a little bit of a background. I'm sorry to kind of roundabout answer to your question, but to join the program, and the way that I look at it, first thing I just say, I see everyone in the community, every single member of the Casper community, as an ambassador. Every single person is an ambassador in their own right. They share information. They do as they please. They educate people, and that is amazing. So I just want to say that, obviously, first and foremost. But where I see the ambassador program sort of being that next step is, there's those people that kind of want to reach out. They want to say, "Hey, I want to network with other people around the world, other ambassadors or other people that want to do this." So to apply to join the program, it's there's a page on the Caspa.org page up the top. There's a section called ambassadors, I believe it's called. And then there's kind of like an overview of, what is an ambassador, and it really kind of encompasses what I just explained there. It's not about being paid to talk about the project. It's not about, how many people can you get to sign up to this wallet. It's not about how many, people can like this post. It's about truly embodying the ethos of the community, and ensuring that in every interaction you have with new and existing members, you're trying to educate and provide some value. So go to the page, check out some of the requirements there. And I see it, for those people that apply, that there is definitely a lot of applications, and some people maybe are new to the community. We're obviously looking for passionate new members. But we're looking for people that have been around for a while in the community, and shown their dedication to the program. So, I mean, ultimately, it comes back to everyone is an ambassador. If you would like to network with other people that want to, take it a little bit further, then apply. Definitely jump in there and apply on the form on the website and connect up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about Kaspa, is the fact that there is no paid promotion type stuff, so that when anybody is talking about Kaspa, whether it be YouTube, whether it be X, whether it be anywhere that you see, people talking positively about it, it's because they genuinely, believe in the project and believe, um, and have some sort of like or love for the project. And there's no money involved, you know.
I think that's perfect because I look at it this way, right? If you want to have a small or like say if you want to throw down money and pay KOLs to talk about your project, right? They'll talk about your project for 5 minutes, they'll pump it up, and then the next day they'll be talking about the next project. And almost, in my opinion, people can disagree with me, totally fine. But in my opinion, I feel like it's more of a red flag for the project, right? It's like, well, how many KOLs have we paid to talk about us? We've got 20 of these guys on the roster. On Wednesday, this guy will be talking about us. It's like, well, no, the community are passionate people that just want to talk about it because they want to talk about it. They're like, this is truthful. Every interaction. And it's funny, like, you attend these big, like I attended Token 2049, right? And so we were at the booth, we were talking to all the lovely people that come past, and you get these people that come past almost like it's like they're going to open their coat and say, hey, which KOL do you want to talk about your project? And I like to kind of flip the script on them, right? Because they go, well, we could get this person to do this, and we can get this person to do that. And I go, well, let me just stop you there. But everything that you think you understand about crypto marketing, Kaspa kind of does it the other complete opposite. You think that you need to pay people. They say, yeah, definitely. Well, how else are you gonna get your project known? I go, well, every sort of social media influencer that I'm aware of is doing it because they passionately love the project, and then the minds just explode. They can't comprehend that people would talk about something without being paid. So it's a sad fact, but it's something that I'm really proud that the community does without payment. So it's awesome.
Yeah, when it's all said and done, the paid promotions run rampant
Oh
in
yeah,
crypto as a whole. So
definitely.
it's refreshing to know that there's at least one project out there that doesn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's we all got to be the it's cheesy, but we got to be the change that we want to see. If we wanna be that positive community that doesn't pay people, that is genuine, then we all need to try and be our genuine souls. And so that's what I try and be, and that's what I see a lot of our community do every single day. So it's awesome.
How much time do you think you spend per day just thinking about Kaspa, or are you kind of just kind of, we all have different things. Like me, I'm trying to like not look at my portfolio every day, but I was just kind of curious. And then kind of a second part is like, what do you think the general sentiment just with crypto and in general with Australians? Are they like worried about the inflation down there, or is like kind of really open to crypto?
Definitely. First question is it's a good one. I definitely Casper is seemingly taken over all facets of my life. I think there's definitely a lot of thought that does consume me about different ways that I can educate myself first and foremost. Because I think that's the best takeaway from all of this is educating yourself on something that you may not have previously known. But secondly, how can I try and educate others? I can definitely aspire to be like some of the amazing community members, but how can I do that? So to answer your question, I spent a lot of time, thinking about that. Maybe not so much on the portfolio side. I used to do a lot of thinking about the price action. And frankly, in my personal opinion, it does get you a little bit anxious looking ups and downs. So I personally have taken an approach to just kind of completely disconnect as much as I can from the price. And it sounds cliche, but I do my best. Obviously, got to check the portfolio every now and again. But yeah, answer your question, probably more than I should. Definitely more than I should. Not that it's a bad thing, but definitely got to try and really make a concentrated effort to touch grass every now and again, get outside, get the dog out and play with the dog, and get some nature into me. So yeah, more than I should, but definitely beneficial from learning. You know, a lot of learning is really amazing, whether it's through looking at, you know, currently I'm trying to push myself for educational development. You know, I'm not a developer at all, but playing around with that sort of stuff and sort of trying to really understand the deeper protocol side, which is fun. So that answered the first question. But or I hope it answers the first question.
Oh yeah, I
um,
think that's good.
but the gist of how it is in Australia. Look, Australia is still we I think that we have an amazing community of crypto enthusiasts. And it was one thing that was really interesting for me to see because you guys may have seen, but you know, for anyone that didn't, we had a Casper booth at a crypto convention in Australia. It's called the Australian Crypto Convention. And so it was in November last year, I think it was. And it was really special for me because coordinated a lot of the team to come down to Australia, right? And actually, as far as I'm aware, it's the most amount of sort of I don't like to use the word that much, but I guess I have to. I suppose most amount of core team members or core contributors to the Casper
Hmm.
project in one place at one time, and so they came down to Sydney in Australia, my city, and the turnout of people was absolutely fantastic. Like, you know, being at the convention, just at the booth, and seeing the caliber of people that were coming past, you know, it was pretty keen, like pretty exciting because I've seen, you know, conferences all around the world, and there's always a pretty tight demographic of people that come past. But in Australia, the demographic was quite wide. You know, we had families with their children, families with their baby walking around the conference floor. We had older generation of people asking really fantastic questions about Casper, and so you know, I think um, we are a small by population country. But I do think that we do have a lot of impact on the world with crypto because I do see a lot of Australian crypto sort of Australian Casper fans out there. We've got a small community, I think about 200 people in our little Telegram group that we chat with, you know, every now and again. But I think the vibe is everyone's just, it's the same around the world, wherever you are at the moment. There is some ups and downs, that's crypto, right? But there's a lot of really passionate people. So yeah, I think it's good. It's a growing community.
Do
And
many people have problems with transferring money from their bank into
oh
the
yeah.
like in the United States? I've never had a problem. I've been able to transfer as much money I want into Coinbase or whatever. I was just curious if that's a little bit
So
more of a roadblock.
it is. It really is. And so in Australia, there is essentially four major banks. All right. And I would say three out of four of them are they try to show themselves as being crypto positive, but essentially will freeze your bank account at a moment's notice, right? And I learnt this the hard way about 9 months ago when essentially, look, I'm a miner. I prefer to just mine the coin and I just do it in my own time. But for whatever reason, on the day, on the day, I needed access to a specific crypto that I needed to buy, and you know, I made the choice of purchasing it right on an exchange, and I think I used like MoonPay as the on ramp or whatever through an exchange, right, to pay from AUD into whatever currency, right, and my account was frozen immediately. Right. And it was frozen. It was like a Friday afternoon. And of course, banks don't, they just don't operate apparently after business hours on a Friday or until the Saturday. And they're like, oh, well, you don't do this. And so I called them up. Oh, yeah, call us back on Monday. So first issue, my accounts were frozen for the entire weekend, right? No access to any funds. I had this is one bank account that has connection to my business bank account, which froze that as well. I had to call them on Monday, and I was treated like a criminal. I called them up. I spoke to them. It took over an hour, and over an hour of hey, what are you doing with this coin? Why are you doing this? is anyone making you doing this? Like anyone making you do this? And the whole rigmarole of all of that. And ultimately, I had to basically prove what I was doing. So Australia is still, they're taking the approach that, oh, we want to protect people, right? And that's, there is an element of truth. You know, one of my favorite genres of YouTube videos is scam baiting, seeing, you know, those type of videos, and they do exist for a good reason. But there has to be a better way of handling this. And because in Australia, when we're handling that everyone is a criminal until proven otherwise in terms of your bank account, yeah, it's a big problem. So
Is there a
yeah,
sliver of Australian politicians that are starting to become more pro crypto, like in the United States, or is that
unfortunately not that I'm aware of.
okay?
Australia is still, we have some ways to go. There's some good exchanges, like, you know, I definitely gotta say that there is some exchanges that are trying to advocate for this. And obviously that's it's beneficial to them. But I cannot probably put my finger out. But I'm happy if anyone corrects me in the chat, or anyone says otherwise, happy to know otherwise. But I'm not aware of anyone who's really staunch positive on making this change. So we're a little bit behind. I think we're always just generally like a little bit behind the states, right, with policies and stuff like that. But I can only hope that by talking about it, we can hopefully find that catch up.
Okay.
So yeah.
Sounds good.
You
Thanks.
know-
I think maybe Black Tiger Miner might have a question or two up his sleeve.
Yeah.
Let me jump in real quick. I had issues in the United States with transferring crypto or buying crypto, transferring money from my bank as well. It wasn't that the accounts got completely shut down and froze, but they wouldn't let the transfers go through. So I had to really dig deep to try and find a scenario where I could buy crypto in the bear market. I think it's certain banks won't allow it, but it's just amazing to me because I know a lot of people, no matter what country you're in, probably have had this issue. But it's amazing to me that banks won't let you spend your own money on what you want to spend it on, and it's incredible to me.
I think
Anytime
it's
I think
funny.
about that,
It's absolutely wild to think that, you know, I would say the majority of people, myself included, take it for granted that the money that you say you're aware of that's in your account is, I mean, not to be alarmist or anything, but it's ultimately not your money. It is in the
correct.
hands of others who can do as they please. They can do as
They
they
can
choose
tell
with
you that
it.
you can and can't spend your money certain places.
Exactly.
It's
And
And they
ridiculous.
so,
actually might not even have it because they might only have 10 or 20%
yeah,
of your money. So
they've
it
lent it
might not even
out
be
to
there.
someone, and yeah. It's
But they say they
honestly,
want to protect you, but then you're allowed to go gambling, at a casino, later that night and lose, $20,000 if you want to. And
yeah.
it's just incredible what they consider to be
Where were they then when you were pulling out lots of $100 bills at the ATM to go put it
exactly.
into a slot machine or something?
Exactly.
They only come in to protect you when it suits them best. Obviously, there is a percentage of that does achieve the protection, but I think ultimately what is, even for me, a little bit of an eye opener, until it happens to you, you do kind of take it for granted, you know, until you need, or until you see the value of what crypto can bring. You don't really see the value to why are we doing this? Like what are we doing here, right? And so for me, obviously having more deep philosophical views of it, but then ultimately having that instance where basically had no access to my own money. Luckily, I have another account with another separate bank, but ultimately my account was frozen for 3 days straight. Why do we need crypto? Well, we need crypto because we need to be in control of our own funds and do as we please without, you know, the oversight of the government or the oversight of a bank or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, that's one of the big uh, positives for crypto, right? You don't have to go through the bank. You're not intertwined with the bank's business hours or transactions. Because I guess it happened to everybody. Because I also, in the beginning, some of the banks would let you do a small transaction. And if you went to a bigger transaction, it would freeze your account. And I had friends that said they used their card and their debit card got froze. You got to call the bank and explain what you're doing and who you are. And then they only let you do 1 or 2 more transactions before they freeze it. So there was a lot of, I guess, pushback. That was back when the lawsuit with XRP was going on. So there was lots of pushback from the bank with buying crypto or even using crypto, because I think the bank kind of saw it as competition. So they didn't really want to, I guess, go too far ahead or too far open with crypto. But so I got 2 questions. One of the questions is, I'm mining as well, and I just got was a KS3M, but with 94% already mined, do you think it's still worth it to turn it on? And what happens once all the coins are mined out? Do you get transactions or fee processings once everything's mined out, or how will that work?
Yeah, awesome. Good to have another miner on the call, and I think a couple of you guys are probably mining CryptoPumpz, and I don't know if the other guys here, but awesome. So Kaspa is at 90% in circulation. I think it is at the moment. So we just ticked over, I think, to 90%. So mining is an interesting thing, right? And it's something that it can be amazingly beneficial for some, and for some that are in regions where, you know, the price of electricity is insane. Like some of our community members, I think in Germany, have indicated to me that the price that they pay for electricity is just insane. It cannot be that beneficial for them there. Now, the first question I always ask to people is, should I mine? I say, well, what's your electricity rate? You know, first and most importantly is, what is the rate that you are getting to mine electricity? Now, you know, in the States, I know you guys have access to some pretty amazing electricity prices. And I would say that anything under 10 cents is going to be appealing. But in some locations, I'm aware that you guys can get like 3 cents a kilowatt hour on your electricity rate. Now, I'm not aware of what your electricity rate is there, but it really depends. I suppose if you have if you've done the napkin maths, as I like to say, and you've done the calculations of your electricity rate, and you know you're at least ultimately, if you are making more coin than it would be to buy it, then definitely mine it. But if you like to look at it a different way, which a lot of miners do, if you would like to obtain KYC-free coins without needing to on-ramp through one of these amazing exchanges that we just talked about, who ultimately take a fee, you know, they might take 5%, or there might be a payment processing fee, and ultimately you're at the same rate. And if you factor that in, but you're still, you know, ahead, definitely go down that path. But I think there's a lot to be said about mining. It is not as black and white. It's not I have this, I mine this, I get this. Because there's strategies that can make things appealing, and there's strategies that can make things not so appealing. So, you know, not so appealing to me would be that every single time I need to buy coin, I need to go through an on-ramp, right? I prefer to mine it. It goes into my wallet. I control it. And, you know, providing I'm happy with my electricity rate, then yeah, I'm happy with that. Now, are you what rate are you sort of running at there? Are you yeah, I guess like I would ask you that question back first before I jump on to the next.
I think it's like 10 or 12 cents. It's not very cheap. You said 3. I wonder where that 3 cents is in my mind.
It's very cheap.
Yeah, I've
that's
heard
that's in other countries.
That's 33
No, I
I
don't
don't think
cents.
you're getting that in the United States or.
I've heard some people in Texas, I think it is, or some of that sort of region, I think, are getting 3 to 5 cents.
Yeah,
I think
But yeah,
sometimes
in
you can
Texas.
rent out commercial buildings and talk your rates lower if you're going to be running a ton of stuff. So there
yeah.
might be
So
something like that going on.
Yeah, that was
what
my
generally
plan.
I know
If,
someone that
definitely.
used to mine Ethereum, and they rented a storage unit, and they removed the light bulb, and they plugged into the light bulb and got the free electricity, and they were mining Ethereum during the last bull
I
run.
oh wow,
There's some there's some pretty ingenious ways out there to get that free electricity. You know, you go rent a hotel room or something for the night, or go do whatever, right? Um, Often what happens with electricity companies is they love people to use their electricity. Wow, it's an amazing surprise. But if you can go to them and say, hey, I commit to use X amount of electricity 24/7, then you can get some pretty amazing rates, right? And so for home mining, sounds pretty unheard of to get 3 to 5 cents a kilowatt hour, or et cetera, like that, right? And I think, the average in the States is probably 10 cents around there. But if you can commit to a large amount of energy usage, then they can run the numbers and it makes it feasible, because electricity isn't just what exists from your boundary inwards to your house, right? Electricity is does the grid nearby have enough capacity to have Mr. Black Tiger Miner running, X amount of electricity 24/7? Have they got a transformer in the local area that can do that? So they may be saying, well, if Black Tiger Miner commits to pay us X amount of electricity for the next 12 months, then it's viable for us to upgrade certain parts of the grid or do whatever. I know I'm kind of oversimplifying it here, but there's a lot of elements to that. So long-winded answer to your question, but something I tell every single person that asks me if they should mine. And I really first stress to them, mining is not an easy game. It's not a quick win. It's not a. I'm sure that I'm preaching to the choir here. But for those that are not that see it and say, oh wow, it's easy money. I can just mine and make lots of money. That period did happen quite early with Kaspa during the mining period, and I'm not going to deny, but the people that got in very early with at least when the first ASICs arrived on the network, they made a big bet, because obviously they sent money off into the void to a company that nobody knew about, but ultimately they made off with some good profits there. And so mining is kind of about taking risks. It's taking a risk, putting, as we in Australia like to say, having a punt, and seeing what are the results, right? So check out your electricity rates. More importantly, though, check out where you're mining, because a lot of people underestimate the value of the actual internal electrical wiring in their house. Are you trying to run a KS5 that pulls 3,500 watts off a 15 amp plug, and you're about to burn your house down, right? So check out the electricity rates, check out the supporting infrastructure of where it's going to be located, and then if all of the stars align, then go forward. But I do like to add, before I kind of answer the last part of it, there is an element of those miners that actually, look at home mining. They look at the KS0 Pros or the Ultras or the KA boxes, and they're an amazing, that the Kaspa, first and foremost, can use those even for solo mining. They're an amazing tool to educate yourself, right? To learn about mining, because a lot of people learn, just like myself, learn by doing. So they're like, well, what's mining? Like, what's going on in that box? Like, is there something in there? Is there someone in there doing something? So, if you can go get a little home miner, yeah, there you go, right? I love you've got the special edition one there as well. That's awesome. So if you can go and get one of those, you can plug it in, and you can, literally see that. I mean, obviously you cannot see inside the box unless you had X-ray vision or something, but you can see this box is heating up, it's creating, it's doing something, and the output of that is coin, hopefully, on the other end. And so that is another segment of the market that's pretty awesome, because it can enable people who have always been on the fence about mining, who have also always been like, well, what are they doing? What is that? To just kind of jump in and spend a couple of $100 and grab one. So I didn't answer your third question though, which was, I suppose what happens after the the full allocation of Kaspa is out into the ecosystem. Now, ultimately, no one has like a lot of people have a lot of crystal balls. They have a lot of tea leaves that they like to read, and a lot of seeing the future. But the way that I look at it is, and the way that I understand a lot of the much smarter people than me in the Casper community. There's no silver bullet for this type of situation, and that's even true for Bitcoin, right? For any project that has there's the same principles as Casper, in the way that the security budget kind of is allocated there. Nobody really knows what's going to happen at the end, but what they do know is there's going to be a number of different solutions, or at least in my opinion, a number of different solutions that will, solve that ultimate security budget sort of question, right? So first and foremost, what we have today, and this is just my 2 cents, I'm just a guy on the community with a microphone talking about my opinion, but first and foremost, I see that Casper, there's obviously the transaction fees, right? Now, that's pretty normal for any proof of work project, and Bitcoin will be doing the same thing, saying, hey, transaction fees, blah, blah, blah. There's the everyday transaction fees. For me to Blacktigerminer, I sent you some Casper, cool, little fee there, right? There is then the protocols that sit on top of that. Right. So there's the protocols that sit on top of Casper, just like I said before, as the way that I see it as the TCP/IP of the crypto world. There'll be the protocols that sit on top of Casper and utilize it. Now, unlike other protocols where they often operate in sort of a parasitic nature, they'll do everything in their own world. They'll have their own sequencer. They'll operate completely segregated, and then every now and again they'll communicate back to the layer one and send one transaction with one set of transaction fees back to the base layer, just to keep it kind of going along, right? The difference is Casper will and does offer the speed to enable every single transaction or every single protocol that operates on top of it to operate in sort of a based roll-up sort of setting, right? And so again, it's another protocol, another thing, but ultimately I see many different things built on top of Casper, which is why I see it as kind of the ultimate base layer that will contribute back to the security budget, right? Transaction fees from everyday transactions. Right now we have KRC20, where every deployment, every fee goes directly back into the miner's pocket, right? I'm sure that you guys have probably mined through some of our pretty big events that have happened in the last year or two, and one of the recent times was, I think it was the deployment of the KDAO coin, where the amount of transactions in a day was insane, right? And so I remember hitting a block with some of my miners, and I think I got like 800 cats in one block. And now I'm not saying that's the silver bullet, that's not going to solve all our problems, but when you start realizing that Casper enables every single operator on top of its network to give directly back to the miners, right? The miners are the lifeblood of a proof of work network. Without them, the network wouldn't exist, right? We're giving directly back to them. We're stimulating the ecosystem, and we're keeping it rolling. So again, lots of words, but I see many, many, many different things being built on top of Casper, and many different things contributing back to that security budget in future. Do I know what will succeed? No, nobody knows. Do any of the Bitcoin maxis know what will succeed with when Bitcoin ultimately in 2150 or whatever, that all the coins are out in circulation? No, not really either. But I'd stand by the fact that the Casper team have put their money where their mouth is and say, we're not going to make the security budget someone else's problem. We're not going to give it to our great grandchildren. We are going to deal with it today. Well, not today, but in our lifetime, and we're going to see what happens, right? And so, it's a cool time that we live in, to be able to see technology like Casper go through its full lifespan. I'm not aware of other projects that are proof of work, fair launch, that will fully allocated in that manner. So yeah.
A lot of people call Casper ghost chain, because there's not much going on at the moment. just transactions, KRC20, KRC721, the NFTs, but like all that's going to change, really, isn't it? With smart contracts, you'll be able to do so much more on it. And like Blacktigerminer was saying, what happens? Like we're on 62 CAS block reward, so with the rapid emission schedule, we need the fees to kick in there to keep miners happy and keep the network secure. So, um, do you think all the with the base rollups and like maybe stable coins and all these IGRA labs, all these things are going to come on board? This will like secure the network. This will encourage miners to, because the hash rate is staying strong, like it's not going anywhere. So I think they're holding on because they know what's coming.
Look, I strongly agree. I mean, I don't want to be the most bullish person in the room. But I do have a lot of. My opinion is that I look at Casper in the last couple of years has been proving itself and building itself as this reliable and amazing base layer. It's the foundation of the house. It's the concrete slab that gets poured so that everything else can be built on top of it, right? And so it hasn't been amazingly sexy to develop for Casper in the last couple of years. If you're a developer from the crypto world, you want to see like how can I jump in there and build with a language that I'm familiar with? Because for the tech like the people that aren't too familiar, from the at least the way I understand it, Rust is an amazing programming language, but it's not as forgiving to get involved with as a beginner. And so people kind of join the community either for the last couple of years have had the option of developing for the core technology, Casper itself, or what can I develop with it? And now we are seeing the point in which the network has built its base layer. It is ready to go. And we are opening the doors to every single developer that wants to build their layer 2 on top of it, their protocol, their app, their whatever. And it doesn't have to be in Rust programming language, albeit there will be some options to do, hopefully with like Sparkle and stuff like that, where you can program in Rust. But the doors are opening and the developer community is taking a look at it. And I think we're going to see a lot of new faces coming into the community. So I'm pretty excited for it.
One more question: who do you think will be first? Do you think Kaspa Ecosystem Foundation or Eager Labs will be out first?
Look,
You have to
I
guess.
see. Oh no, I mean, I see that there's enough. The amazing thing about Casper is there is enough throughput for everyone, and throughput is it's not about the transfer, like it's not the TPS. It's not how many transactions can I send, because I see. When I look at transactions and a lot of these metrics that people put out there, they get excited about, oh, how many TPS does your network do? And I think of it as like the mail center. How many letters can I send per day, right? I can send 100,000 letters per day, but it takes me 6 weeks for them to arrive. No, Casper sends 300 letters per second, or can send currently 300 letters per second, and they arrive every single second, right? Now, the reason why I say that is because I think that with us turning up the taps to 10 blocks per second, and even in a future 50 blocks, who knows? The throughput there makes it so that any network, any layer 2, anyone can build on top of it. And I don't see it as being a one-stop shop. I think there'll be many different protocols or layer 2s on top. So long-winded answer, I don't think I could say, I don't think anyone's going to win. I think everyone wins. Everyone wins by building amazing tech. And so I think we're going to see that in the very near future.
Do you think because Kaspa's UTXO also that there's any way that there could be some kind of relationship with Bitcoin and Kaspa? Because I know that some people are working on stuff where, since Cardano, even though it's proof of stake, it's UTXO, it's extended UTXO, that there's projects working to be able to kind of do stuff with them together.
I'm super excited for that. I'm excited. Well, not like isolated with Bitcoin Casper. I think that definitely there's going to be some. I think that there's going to be some smart people who will start doing some pretty amazing things to kind of bridge Casper to other projects. Have I heard anything about that in particular? Not yet. But I think this is the most exciting thing. We're going to see all these particular features that people have previously said, oh, why doesn't Casper do X, Y, Z? Well, people are going to build it as a layer 2, and it's going to be using base rollups, and it's going to be utilizing the Casper network. It'll be, every transaction will go to the Casper network first and foremost, and then be utilized on the layer 2. Why doesn't Casper have privacy functions? Well, someone might build a privacy layer 2 on top of Casper. It'll utilize it. It'll serve that need. Why doesn't Casper have, AI capabilities? Maybe someone's going to build a layer 2 on top of it. So I think I'm just super excited about that. But I don't know particularly in that Bitcoin case, but I think there could be some cool things from that. Definitely.
I think that would be a good process if Bitcoin, because people were talking about Bitcoin could do larger transactions and they could use Caspa for smaller transactions since the fees will be cheap and faster. And then they could kind of integrate it where large stuff goes through Bitcoin and then some of the transactions comes through Caspa. But then we have to some point get along with the Bitcoin maxis so we can all be one happy family. Yeah, I had those
Yeah.
miners on the floor. My
But even the Bitcoin community is not all united, because there's some
Yeah.
Correct.
maximalists that they don't like ordinals or runes or anything else besides that. And I think maximalism's bad in my opinion, because it's like, what are you going to look at coin market cap in 10 years and it's going to be one project on there and no other projects? I mean, the scams and all the kind of junk, you can throw that to the side, but it's going to be a multi-coin future. And even if Bitcoin just is the store of value, that's a big market. And if there's a lot of capital there that can shift into some kind of relationship, but we'll see. There's a lot of devs working on all sorts of different stuff, and that they can shift over from one project to another fairly quickly in the grand scheme of life.
I
Oh,
think
definitely.
I think yeah, I think you're correct. I don't think there's a future where it's one coin to rule them all. I don't necessarily see that. Although I'm, a huge Casper fan, I think that there will be different projects that interact. I think that Casper is going to be very, very key and central to that interaction as a base layer that everything else can kind of utilize. Will Bitcoin be utilizing Casper? I don't know. All I do know is that historically, the Bitcoin community has moved very, very, very slow, and has been adverse to any change. Now, some people see that as a positive, some people see that as a negative, but take that as you will. So yeah, we're not sure, or I'm not sure.
Time will tell.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. I bought those I bought some aftermarket chart power cords and the power
Oh yeah,
cord stopped. So that's why I have those sitting around. I got to get some more cords for those too. But
yeah. You got to
another
be careful.
question. Yeah, exactly. The wattage is not right. You're gonna burn your house down. And
I
I was
honestly, and
mentioning
I
with
say that, yeah, sorry, I was just say, I say that from nearly burning my house down. So we learn through doing. And I happened to be at home one day when a PowerPoint caught on fire. So yeah, learn by doing, and hopefully never have that experience.
I've been there before. Had cords melt and GPUs overheat and wires burn, all kind of weird stuff. Like you said, mining was hard, especially in the GPU days. I
Oh
think there's some
man.
questions. But if we get time, do you guys want to talk about the smart contracts development and that different companies and software?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
easy.
sweet. Yeah. You already spoke to Igra Labs, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we I joined a space with XXIM, and we spoke with them. I also met Dennis in Dublin when I was there for the Casper Industrial Initiative. Lovely guy. Met at the event there, so it was good to sort of chat with him again. But yeah, they seem cool, definitely.
But I didn't know if it was an advantage or not that all of those. Well, Dennis is from a Kaspa background. I'm after forgetting the name. What's the name? Dag Labs.
Daglabs, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Would having a really good knowledge of Kaspa help developing the smart contracts, or is it just totally separate? It's just built on top of Kaspa, really?
I think ultimately, if a developer dedicates time to developing on top of Casper, they will understand everything that they need to be able to develop for Casper, right? They may not align with ethos of Casper, but they will understand what they need. Now, whether that gives the Eager Labs guys, an advantage, I think it just gives them insight into the community, perhaps because they kind of understand where things came from and how we got here. But does it give them a technical advantage? I don't think it does. I think it's just a matter of understanding the community and the nuance behind, where things are traveling. So, but yeah. But I think they're fantastic guys. Spoke to them on that call and met Dennis, and yeah, it's awesome.
We weren't going to ask you about Binance or prices or anything like that. There's a couple of questions in. Is that okay?
Yeah, look, I ultimately
I know
the question is always the same, but I'm happy to entertain the thought at the moment. It's up to you. Yeah.
Your crystal ball, have you got it there?
Oh mate, I've been shining it up, but it's out at the shop at the moment. Don't have it with me right now.
Okay. So there's a question here. Casper would be better off if it laid off the politics, holding hundreds of thousands.
Look, I
See that
think
around the world.
that's that's something to be said. Everyone has their own opinion, and I think the beauty of Casper is the fact that there is nothing official. Like if I take it back to the base essence of Casper, Casper is a GitHub repository with a number of developers that develop around it, who contribute their time, their energy, their smarts, and a community that supports them. Is there a Mr. CEO at the top saying, we're going to talk about politics or we're going to talk about this hot topic? No, there is people just like myself who have an opinion, right? And so, everyone has different opinions. That's totally fine, and I respect that. But you can't take the good with the bad, right? I'm not saying political opinions are bad. I, I'm trying to be very respectful because everyone is experiencing different things, but you can't take the good with the bad. You can't say Casper is the most decentralized project and anyone can take part, and then when anyone take part and someone says something you don't like, you tell them no, you can't take part. It doesn't work like that. Decentralization is for everyone, and it means that everyone can take part, everyone can be involved, and everyone has an opinion. And so you might have an opinion that whatever someone talking about shouldn't be spoken about, but someone might think, yeah, that person should speak about that. So ultimately, that's just the way the world is, and that's how crypto is with decentralized projects. So yeah, it's a bit nuanced, but yeah, my opinion.
No problem. Good answer. We never asked you about the Made in America as well on CoinGecko and coinmarketcap.com. Like the other lads are all based in the US. Me and you aren't. So if we do get attacked, it's not good to us. But it's I look at it, I think it's good for people in the US. They'll if they don't have to if it does go ahead and they don't have to pay capital gains or whatever on the cash, but it's good for them. Like more people will get into it as an investment. But I understand it's decentralized and it's for everybody, like you posted. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Look, my thoughts just come back to what I said, right? If in a country Casper falls into a category, then so be it. Totally fine. Like it's no sweat off my back. Ultimately, there's no official CEO going, Casper is made in America. Like anyone can say whatever they want, and more power to them, right? As you said, you and I were both not in America, so it doesn't really bother us, or what doesn't really concern us. We're not thinking about how our government is going to categorize Casper as made in Ireland or made in Australia. But if they did, I'm sure we'd support it. So I just ultimately bring it back to decentralization, right? Everyone is entitled to their opinion. Everyone is entitled to their view. And if your view means that Casper falls into a categorization, then so be it. And, you know, it is what it is. If it benefits Americans, if it benefits miners or people in that region, then yeah, let them have whatever they want. Totally fine.
I think that, and one factor is that it's one thing that it's listed on Coin Market Cap as made in America, which is basically meaningless unless the Trump administration uses that as their metric, because that gets people excited because the largest economy in the world could potentially have crypto investors with no capital gains, but that's not even anything that's like officially out yet.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see the hype and people get pumped, but in the end, there's not a lot there until the administration actually did something.
Yeah, I don't think there's much depth to it, but it's cool. If CoinMarketCap and I think CoinGecko are now doing it, I'm not too
Yeah, I
sure
think
because they're,
CoinGecko now,
they're
yeah.
probably seeing the fun that CoinMarketCap are having and they want to jump in on it as well. Because the moment anyone talks about Kaspa, the absolute fanfare of the community is huge. So I'm sure they love that.
It's a
But yeah,
positive.
ultimately, yeah, definitely. I mean, whatever people want to do, you know, more power to them. Does it? Do I give it much thought as an Australian? No, it doesn't. Like, I don't think about that. I don't think about Casper made in America, at all. Does it? Like, I don't know about you guys. If you're all based in the States, except for Crypto Pumps, right? I think.
All I
Or
care about is not paying capital gains. I don't care. That's all I care about. And
That's
and
exactly my
kind of
thoughts.
weird. It's kind of weird that Bitcoins wouldn't be. I don't know. I mean, Bitcoin is kind of the same as like Caspa. It's kind of. I mean, we don't know. I mean, if the CIA created it, then it is made in America.
yeah, that's it, right? You never know. I mean, look, if my government said tomorrow that, you know, I'm gonna not have to pay capital gains tax on crypto if we call it made in Australia, and then apparently we'll have a miner in every house and it's all made in Australia. We're mining these coins down under. Yeah, cool. You'll hear me talking about it because I'd love it. But like it is it doesn't concern me. But great for those that want to share it that way, and more power to them.
Okay, we have a mining question for you. How important is it to run a Rust node for decentralization? Sorry, can't talk. How important is it to run a Rust node for decentralizing the network if we are not mining?
Look, nodes. So the way that I look at mining, you can't have mining without nodes, and you can't have nodes without mining. They go hand in hand, right? Do you possess the technical capabilities to set up a node? Maybe not. But I do encourage people, because it is very simple, to give it a go. And so I suppose the question is, how important is it? I see that it's valuable to the network, but ultimately we're not out there begging for people to create nodes, which is why we're not, you know, paying people to do nodes, right? We're not saying, oh my God, you need to set up a node right now. Would I love to see every miner who mines have their own node, and should they? In my opinion, yes. But is it like the ultimate importance that right now we get 100 extra nodes? It's not a high concern. It's not something right now that needs to happen. Now, the network of nodes is hovering around 250 to 300 public nodes. The last time I checked, important to say public because there is the existence of nodes that are operating that are not public, right? And essentially what that means is people have created a node on their network, but they haven't port forwarded the port. And so that means that it's not visible as easy to the rest of the network, but they still exist. So I just suggest, if you're a miner, if you're mining Casper and you're at home and you want to learn something cool, a cool weekend project, build a node. You know, a node can be literally just running the software on your existing computer. Although I probably don't recommend people to do that, just because you often want to turn your computer off at night. When you run a node, you want to leave it running 24/7 because it essentially needs to be running 24/7. But check out what other hardware you have in your house. Do you have like a whole laptop? You know, do you even have like a single board computer, like a Raspberry Pi or something, like, you know, something like this, right? This could run a Casper node software, right? And so, yeah, I suggest people who are mining or people who are just looking to learn something new, get out there, spend a weekend learning about maybe Linux and how you can run a node software in a container, or port forwarding, or sort of concepts like that, and you'll walk away feeling not only like you're contributing to the network but also educating yourself at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, I have three KS0 Ultras, and they were very easy to set up. Three settings, and it's working away. But setting up a node was a lot harder. I have an old laptop here running, but Kaspa Silver, he put a video up on YouTube, and I copied that, and I got the node running
Okay.
on mainnet. But I was mining to my own nodes, but I wasn't getting much, so I went back to what's the word I'm looking for?
Pool mining.
Yeah, pool mining. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but when it moves to 10 blocks per second, I have to learn how to upgrade or do the node, and then I want to turn them back on and point them at my node, because you have more chance of hitting a block, don't you? Then
Yeah, look, I mean, ultimately, there will be 10 times as many blocks per day, right? So there'll be 10 times more opportunity to hit a block as a miner. That's fantastic. The amount that you can hit will be spread out, though. So there'll still be the same amount of block reward per day. It's not going to be 10 times as many blocks, or 10 times as much block reward, but it will be ultimately the same amount of block reward split over 10 times as many blocks. But the cool thing about that is, with protocols like KRC20 and other things on top of the network, someone might deploy a token and they'll put in their token fees into that block. And with 10 times as many blocks, that's 10 times as many chances to hit a block that has additional rewards in it, which is pretty cool, additional piece of, fun there.
yeah. And because my miners, they only cost $150 or something. That's part of the decentralization for Caspa, isn't it? Isn't it? Solana, the
Oh,
nodes
yeah.
cost like a load. Is it a few grand?
40,000 is probably the entry point for a Solana node. And there's other projects out there that use insane amounts of resources. So, to put it in perspective, and I made a post about it recently. I won't specify which project it is, but one of their requirements, I think it was that they required 2 terabytes of RAM. Now, in your computer, you probably have less than 2 terabytes of hard drive storage. You might have a terabyte of storage, but they require this in RAM. Okay. And so when you start realizing that, to have a node operating on these networks, you need to put down a house deposit to run that node. Is it truly decentralized? Is it really that easy to get involved? When you have Kaspa, that you could run a node on this, obviously you would probably need a hard drive, an additional hard drive, just so you can store 250 gigs of data on it or something like that. But this is not $40,000. This is $100 single board computer. This is a Raspberry Pi, right? And so that's the beauty of Kaspa. At all levels, it's been optimized so that people can kind of get into it easily, right? We have those home miners like the KS0 Pro, Ultra, KA Box, et cetera, et cetera. But the node software is so low resource that anyone can kind of just jump on and run it. Don't need to have crazy amounts of storage or resources.
Yeah.
Hi, Luke. This is Hoodie Guy here. I have to pop off here, but I just
Yeah,
want to say nice meeting you. Appreciate you coming on. And I think we have a lot of exciting days, months, and years in the future.
Yeah, likewise. And thanks for coming on. Hopefully in the future it will be Kaspa Hoodie Guy. Who knows? But we'll see.
Yeah, I haven't made this shift yet, but people are forcing me or pushing that. But
Yeah.
yep, I'll leave that
Love it.
surprise for the future. Thanks. Have a good day. See you guys later.
Thanks, mate. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
We
All right,
have one
thanks
for
for
your
joining.
we have one for your crystal ball. What do you think the realistic price prediction for Caspa this year?
I don't answer price questions. It's just
Okay.
it's not, yeah. You do whatever you want, whatever price, whatever you think in your crystal ball is worthwhile, but I think it's not valuable for me to say numbers. It just doesn't help anyone.
As Kaspa's ambassador director, what's the key strategy for global adoption, and how can the community help?
Yeah, so the ambassador program is about essentially building communities in regions all around the world. It's not about just having one ambassador here and one ambassador there. I'm focused on essentially building strong teams of individuals who can create almost their own ambassador program, and they can seek out what is important to them in their region, right? So, for example, I brought on two new members in Brazil, right? Two lovely ambassadors there who are focused on things that really matter to the Brazilian people, right? And they may not be the same as what matters to the Australian people. Their exchanges are different, their money is different, their, XYZ is different. And so essentially, what I'm focused on doing is building those teams of people so that in the future, I can essentially make myself redundant. So essentially, I don't need to exist, or there doesn't need to be a director of the program or a leader or whatever. Everyone is leading their own programs in their own regions and growing out that community of people. So I think the key strategy for me is sort of bootstrapping that at the moment by finding those people. So we're building that team in Brazil, which are amazing. Shout out to Paulo and Israel, who are based there. And then there is France. So we've got some amazing ambassadors there who are, they just did a conference recently where I think there's about 4 or 5 of them now, and they represented Kaspa in an amazing way. And it comes back to what I was talking about earlier, where these guys and girls are talking genuinely. They're not just on the stage going, well, this is my paid engagement. I'm up here for 30 minutes, and then afterwards I'm jumping over to Solana where I'll talk about how it is the ultimate XYZ. This is their passion. So that's my strategy. Try and bootstrap this at the beginning, bring up these communities of different people, who are already doing amazing stuff without me. I'm not adding, I'm not sort of making them more amazing. I'm just trying to connect them all together and bring them into the fold. And how can the community help? Well, I mean, if you uh, if any of the things that I say during this call resonate with you, and you feel that you want to kind of be a part of that community, the ambassadors, etc., then apply, join. If you don't, and you feel like it's not important to you, totally fine. Then I just say get out there and do your best to educate. Educate yourself first. Learn about what it is we're doing here. Spend some time, understand understand about what the protocol is, what the technology behind it is, why it's important, and then educate others. And that's all I can ask.
People asking about wallet number 2. Any thoughts?
Look, again, it's like the crystal ball one. I
Yeah.
mean, some people really, and look, more power to them. Some people love speculating. I have family who love to look at the charts and read what they're seeing. I don't know. I'm not a trader, so I don't really care. But if you see that wallet is Binance and you believe it, then go for it.
Okay. Somebody has a comment up there. Sydney was a nice town. Being from Tennessee, they knew Jack Daniels and Beverly Hillbillies. I'll take it.
Well, thank you. Was a nice town. Yeah, it was a nice town. I don't know about right now. It's there's some interesting things going on, but yeah, Sydney is always very welcoming of any international guests. So
Dodgy car salesman. I was over there for a year, and the car I bought ended up being 2 different cars welded together underneath. Like,
mate,
it
I
just
that is I tell people that story now. Like,
yeah.
I think that is absolutely hilarious. I don't know if you told the other guys here,
No,
but yeah,
don't tell
like.
anybody. Yeah.
So, how long were you
What's
in
the story?
Australia for?
I was over there for a year. I was driving a digger, a backhoe, a JCB, for 1 year in Sydney, and basically go over there, and it was an Irish guy I was working for, and he goes, "Have you ever driven a tractor?" No. All right. So you've never driven a JCB? No. He says, "All right, hop in there. go over there, pick up some pipes, bring them back to me. So I did it, but on the way over, I toppled the JCB. So he came over and he put the arm down, put the JCB back up. He said, try again. So I did it again. But anyway, I needed a car to get around, and I bought it off some dodgy used car salesman. And it was a Ford Telstar. And the air conditioning didn't work. It would overheat. I had to keep the windows open, and it was just terrible. And it turns out it was 2 cars sold together. And I can't go back to Australia, I don't think, because I just drove it to the airport and I got on a plane. I just left it, so I couldn't get rid of it. Nobody would buy it. So I probably, if I go back to Australia, I'm going to be, because they're very strict in the airport over there. They took, sorry, one more story. One of my friends, he applied for a visa. We all had to get visas, but if you got any criminal record on your visa and you say no, but from the time he got his visa and we were flying over there, you have to fill out another form on the plane, and he got done for drink driving, and so when we landed in the airport, 2 guards just came and took him away. He was gone for 2 hours. So yeah, but because he filled it out, he wasn't lying, so it was okay. But anyway, yeah, that was my experience of Australia. It was nice besides that.
Well, I hope you enjoyed your time other than that.
Yeah.
But I do
Yeah.
laugh because when you told me that story, I just pictured 2 front halves of the car welded together, and I was like picturing like a cat dog situation where they're both going, and you were able to
Yeah.
drive either way or whatever. But anyway, so
Yeah.
my
No,
stupid imagination.
hopefully I would have spotted that. But here's another question. What's the biggest challenge Kaspa faces in scaling, and how do we overcome it?
So biggest challenge, I suppose, is just getting. It's not a challenge that is unique to Casper. It is a challenge that's just unique to the crypto world, right? Is getting the awareness out there, and we all live in crypto land. We're aware of what's going on in crypto on a daily basis. But actually, when you take a zoom out and you look at how small crypto is in the realm of traditional finance, we're what, under like 5% of traditional finance. We are a speck. So, I think what is the challenge is adoption, right? How are we going to get this adoption out there? How are we going to get the average users to utilize this and understand the things that we were talking about earlier? That the money in your bank account is, not to be alarmist, but it's not your money. It's, the bank's money, and they can do as they please. So the biggest challenge, and this is not just Casper, this is every project, every crypto, everything, is adoption. And so think of different ways, and let's work that out. So scaling it, though, I suppose that kind of comes back to the adoption, right? It's if we have people using the network, then how are we gonna scale? And so I suppose I look at the technology point of view. Casper is taking a specific direction whereby, and this is, I asked Shy this question. He gave me an eloquent answer, as he does with everything. I said, why does Casper not have smart contracts on the layer 1? I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact quote, but he basically said on-chain layer 1 smart contract design adds a fuck ton of complication. Sorry, excuse my French. But it adds a lot of complication, right? And so, we don't need that on the layer 1. We need the sequencer to be there to be able to be utilized by layer 2s. And so they'll do that. And so I see scaling with Casper through layer 2 as being the way that that'll operate. But it's unlike other projects where the layer 2 is a parasite. The layer 2 doesn't add any value. The layer 2 just kind of sucks off the layer 1 and it benefits in its own world. So I think, yeah, a lot of different answers there. Hopefully that kind of hits some of what Bashar is asking.
Okay, another one, a less serious one. Luke, your hair looks taller on X.
Okay, thanks.
How many of the developers of Casper are whales? The reason I ask, I heard that despite being fair launched, a large amount of circulating supply of Casper is held by a small country of people.
Circuit held by a small culture. Yeah, no, I got that. That's the thing about decentralized networks. People can do as they please, and the way in which Casper was launched was it was a fair launch, or some people, like even Jonathan himself, I think likes to refer to as a community launch, right? And so day one, every single person there had the same opportunity to mine Casper as every single other person. Now, does that mean that some people obviously mined a lot of it? Then probably did, but you have to factor in the fact that at that point, Casper had zero value. So people were just they were just putting themselves out there and taking a punt, taking a guess, right? A lot of the people that were there, right at the beginning, maybe didn't think that Casper would last more than 3 days. But it obviously took off, and here we are, 3 years later, and we have an amazing project. So, first of all, do I know what type of holdings the developers have? No, I don't know, and to be honest, I don't really care. But do I know, or do you know what the holdings of the Bitcoin developers are? Do you know how much coin they mined, or how much coin they hold? Does it bother you? I mean, no, not really. So what people do with their coin at the end of the day, it kind of comes back to the whole decentralization thing, right? If people mined coin and can benefit from it, then so be it. That's mining, right? But what developers do in their own time, or what they did at the initial launch of Casper, it doesn't bother me. It's a non-issue as far as I'm concerned.
Isn't that why the rapid emission schedule is to stop somebody accumulating too much Caspa? As part
So
of it, is it?
yeah, I mean, my understanding of it was to get Casper into the hands of everyday people, before enterprise arrived, right? Get it out there, get it in circulation, and make it so that by the time enterprise looks at Casper with their eyes going, "Ooh, here's something shiny," we're at 80%, 85%, so that they're fighting over the last scraps. They're fighting over what's remaining of Casper, and the everyday person like you and me has already mined. If you were one of those people that took a punt when the KS1 came out, or the KS0 when they appeared on the Discord, and everyone thought that Ice River was a scam, then more power to you, man. You made an amazing decision. You sent money off into the void, and you got a miner back, and he mined it. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, deadly. And it was ASIC resistant until 65%, wasn't it? How did they do that? Is that just some programming, or?
Oh, look, to correct you, ASIC resistance is kind of I think it's I don't want to swear but anymore, but I think it's crap. ASIC
Oh,
resistance is only a thing if your project isn't popular enough or beneficial enough for people to spend dedicated time to find out how to actually build ASICs for it, right? Now, what that means is that if people can find a way to build an ASIC, which is an application-specific integrated circuit, a piece of hardware that does one thing, and that one thing is mine your project, then they will do it. There is no, I disagree with anyone that says that ASIC resistance is this and that. It's just a matter of people spending enough time on it. And so Casper wasn't ASIC resistant. Casper was actually built, at least from my understanding and the readings of what Jonathan has put out there, with the intention that Casper would make it through in the same way that Bitcoin did: CPU, GPU, FPGA, and then ASIC, and make it through that trend of hardware to the point where it was able to support the network. And so we're all probably have done some GPU mining, but what I can probably say is that GPU miners go where the wind takes them. If day one you're making profit here, you mine that. Day two you mine over here and you do this project. You don't care. You don't care about, like, you kind of, don't go me altruistic and say I'm going to put 600 of my GPUs on one thing. You just go where it goes. And so ASICs were the intention from day one, which is why I think the usage of the K heavy hash algorithm, which is a slight modification of just the heavy hash algorithm, which is primarily built for, or at least my understanding of it was that it was built with the intention of being optical proof of work compatible. So it's been baked into Kaspa since day one. So yeah.
I too. The only people that don't like ASICs are GPU miners because it takes away from the profitability. And I was a GPU miner. It wasn't a huge rig, but I had, a good amount of GPUs, and I was mining Kaspa after Ethereum had turned over to proof of stake. That was the project that I turned over to, and obviously it worked itself out. Um, and I was a little upset when the ASIC started coming out because I was like, hey, I'm not getting any more Kaspa.
Yeah.
But then again, what projects? There's only 2 data points really, but what projects have been successful out there that have stayed only GPU mineable? There hasn't been any, right? Bitcoin and Ethereum both went to ASICs, and those were by far the most profitable, best projects to mine out in the space. And now we're looking at Kaspa being, I haven't looked at the data that recently, but at one point it was the second most maybe not second most profitable, but it was second most mined.
I think it was like third or
behind
something.
Bitcoin.
It was just behind Doge or something like that, or it was around the same.
It
It was in the
passed
top 5,
Doge
I
at
think.
some point.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's back below it now. But looking back in, the small window of 10 to 12 years that we have to look back into, the only real successful projects that have gotten up to a certain level have, brought out ASICs and been ASIC mineable. So
Yeah, I think I was in the same camp as you. Like I had 100 GPUs who were making really good coin off mining Casper, and all of a sudden, Ice River appeared in the Casper Discord and said, "Hey, we have a KS0 that is literally that box that we just saw before. That's this big, and it did." Like 5 times my farm of 100 GPUs, it did the
with
same
0
amount of
electricity cost, basically.
the price of a light bulb. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, it's over, right? But you know what? I think I have learned a lot in that time, and I really see, like, I'm a big supporter of proof of work mining, right? And the reason that is because I see proof of work mining as a concept as being an amazing tool to exist in the traditional world, right? And so I'm really passionate about this kind of side of thing, but I see, you know, I come from like as I said, more of the enterprise IT background and, data centers and stuff like that, where you see hardware as being very sensitive equipment that needs to be placed in very sensitive environments in data centers that are geographically dispersed. But the cool thing about ASICs are they are a little bit more hardy. They can be placed in anywhere you like. And more importantly, they can be placed at the source of the energy. And so when you start thinking outside the box and you look at mining as not just like the home mining sort of segment, and you start realizing that there is countries in the world who have either a surplus of energy or they have stranded energy, right? And so they have a situation whereby maybe they have a very remote community who is needs electricity, but the grid there is not maintained, right? Now hypothetically you could have a situation where I'm Mr. Miner and I have an ant box container full of Casper miners or Bitcoin miners or whatever miners, right? And I go to that company and I say, hey, we want to drop our miners at the energy source, which could be hydroelectricity, or it could be whatever, it could be flare gas in some place like that. And so what that gives a benefit to the energy grid. The energy grid can then say, hey, we're going to reinvest money in actually, maintaining this grid. And then ultimately the community that lives in that area benefits again from that because they actually have access to a reliable grid that's maintained. And so that I think it's a really, really exciting concept to be able to basically take miners and deploy them anywhere in the world. You have this situation now where Starlink exists, right? You have satellites, thousands of satellites spinning the globe. And so almost any geographical location around the world, you could deploy a miner to, and you can, reap the benefits of having insanely cheap electricity, right? Like it just becomes a wild concept. So something I'm very passionate about. I'm sorry if it bores your listeners, but yeah, it's cool.
No, it's good. We have 873 listeners. That's probably like twice we got for Wolfie, so you can tell him that. A lot more people are on to see you.
Oh, well, awesome. Thanks, guys.
Jonathan, he put up a post about going back to the original Kaspa symbol. Like, I don't know if he was serious or, but it's not as nice as the new one, I don't think. But
Look, my opinion is it's decentralized, right? People can do whatever they want. Personally, I do really like this. I like the logo we're using. I'm I'm a big fan of that. I think it's beautiful. I think it does have some history to it in the way that it was intended. Chad from the community and his team created the logo, and I think it's amazing. It's cool to see it all over different places on hats. I have like a whole bunch of the Casper socks that have the logo on it, and like I can see you're wearing the Jimmy's amazing shirts.
yeah,
I think I've got one.
Chris gave it to me.
I've got one right here. Look, yeah, there's the. There you go with the nice little. He's done a little bit of a
Yeah,
tie spin on it with the thing,
yeah,
but look, I love it. But you know what? At the end of the day, if someone wants to create another logo with Casper on it, and go for it. Do whatever you want. Don't need to ask permission from me or anyone else here. So,
yeah, yeah. How do you see Kaspa positioning itself against major blockchains in the next 5 years?
um, 5 years is a long time in crypto. Like that's huge. Like 5 years is like that's we could be living on Mars in terms of crypto land in 5 years. But how do I see Casper positioning itself? I mean, my two Cas is that I see Casper as being this layer that can be utilized by anyone. And we've had a lot of people from different communities who utilize Ethereum for their layer one, and might be just a little bit disenfranchised by the goings on that are happening over there with Ethereum and the Ethereum Foundation and the people that are there. And I see that, Casper positions itself as being this network that is always there, it's always reliable, it's always scalable, it's always fast, and anyone can build on top of it. And so I don't see it as being like it's necessarily competing, but I feel like it's just gonna swallow up a lot of the market because there'll be people that will say, "Hey, look, we're not really happy with what's going on Ethereum or Solana or whatever these networks are," or maybe they might be happy and they can stay there, totally fine. But they'll start saying, "Well, what are these guys doing? They've just been building constantly. They've been creating something special." And we're now gonna maybe move our project across. There might be existing projects on EVM who say, hey, we might utilize what the Igra Labs guys are doing, or there might be new projects that haven't even been built yet that want to build in Rust native programming language and use Sparkle, right? So I see it positioning itself really well. Casper is here for the long run. We don't follow the hype cycles of what crypto is telling us to do. We just build, and I say we, but the wizards who are developing Casper build amazing tech. And I think, what is it, Michael, that says that I'm butchering his saying, but he's like, to build, you must develop slow to build fast chains or something. I can't remember what it was. He
Something
says
like
it
that.
much better than me. But yeah, I see it being well positioned.
Okay. Casper for noobs. He has thanks, Luke. That's why I push for a project in the community for Raspberry Pi. What's that? 4B plus mini solar miner based on ultras. Do you remember?
I there's been a couple of people that have done that. If you're the person that I remember, then yes, definitely. I think it's awesome. And I actually also think I would love to see, because I don't really have the skill set required. But in other communities, and I will mention it, but like for example, in the Bitcoin community, there is an open source project called BitAxe, and essentially what that is that people have taken and harvested the chips from Bitmain ASICs. They've taken the chips off the hash boards, and then essentially they put them onto an open source board that anyone can create or anyone can build, and they're creating their own community of open source miners. And so I really, really, really hope for a future that we see something like that on top of using Kaspa miners, Kaspa chips. Every now and again I make a post just to see if someone out there has the skills. Unfortunately, I'm not I think you would probably need to be like an electrical engineer who knows like board design very deep, and then also kind of the programming side of it. But I see a future that we could have these integrated network of small miners. But unlike Bitcoin, where it's a lottery, if you're going to hit that block, it's actually realistic for Casper, because you could have this little tiny miner with a little tiny Raspberry Pi node operating together in a solar box off grid, and it can be hitting blocks, right? Like it's single small amounts of hash rate. So yeah, really, really excited for hopefully a future someone much smarter than myself can build that.
And we have a celebrity coder of stuff. Running a node should be and is very easy to do. Everyone should run and should want to run their own node. To be honest, Kaspa NG makes this even easier to do.
100% agree, and huge shout out to Coder of Stuff for taking part. If anyone's not aware, as the name sort of says, he's a coder of stuff, but particularly a coder of the Casper code base, right? So he contributes a lot of amazing work there. So definitely follow him if you're not already. But he's right? Like running a node it should be easy, and it is easy, right? The Casper NG software that Aspect has built is amazingly simple. And so for anyone who's not aware, and probably a good place to start is to jump onto the Casper Silver YouTube channel, where he detailed basically how to spin up a node using this software. And it's a couple of clicks, install it on your computer. Importantly, if you can, port forward port 16111 to your node, and make it public, and get out there and contribute to the network. So, definitely agree, 100%. Thanks for joining, Coda. Appreciate you being here.
I heard a story. I don't know if it was in Dublin, that he was coding on his wedding day before he went down the aisle or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't think I've heard that story, but I wouldn't. I think he would be definitely living up to the name.
Yeah.
If he was coding before he went down to the aisle. Just had a couple of PRs to deal with, and a couple of issues there. Hello from Brazil. Bom dia.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to jump off here for those of you who weren't here at the beginning.
Fucking life flies.
I'm on baby duty, so it's almost feeding time, and the screaming is probably gonna start very soon. So I'm gonna preemptively set up for that. So I appreciate you, Luke, for being here, and also it was good to see BTM and CryptoPumpz again. And I do, before I leave real quick, want to address one of these comments that I saw, because somebody in here, and I'm not a video game guy by any means, but he said something negative about the Sega Dreamcast.
Oh no! Don't talk shit
and
about
said
the Dreamcast.
Kaspa reminds him of the Sega Dreamcast because they promise a lot and never fulfill any of the promises. And that was my favorite video game system ever. And
I have a Dreamcast.
Maybe besides like the original Nintendo and stuff like that. But they're very, very underrated with some of the games they had on that system. And the controller was very similar to the N64 controller, and everything about it I liked. And then it completely just flopped and left, and I don't know what happened. No more games were being but anyways, that was kind of a joke. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But
I love that, and I got to say, I love Dreamcast. I have one still to this day. I play it every now and again, and it is still also one of my favorite consoles ever to exist. So I am in the same camp. Don't worry.
Yeah, I lost mine, and now I don't have another one. So, and you can probably hear the screaming. So I'm going to take off, guys.
All
Hear
right,
the
lovely
crowd.
to
Thanks.
meet you, and
I'll see you guys
see
later.
ya.
See
See ya.
All right, thanks for joining, Cat Daddy.
Thanks. Another question there. Tell me if you have to go, Luke. We're just trying to. I have to skip through a few questions, so apologies if I miss yours, but there's still a good few questions there. Somebody has a question. Also, if you start increasing the blocks per second, then running a node will be more expensive due to hardware costs. So right now, 10 blocks per second is enough. Is that right?
So, I mean, look, that's definitely accurate. So going from 1 block per second to 10 blocks per second, there is a slight increase of resources required for that node. So currently for a 1 blocks per second node, on average, you're probably going to need a quad core CPU, which is pretty much any CPU built in the last five, even maybe 10, 10 years is probably a stretch, but the last 5 years. And you're going to need at least 4 gigs to 6 gigs of RAM, right? Now, to put into perspective, that amount of resources just for that is so minuscule. Like my phone has more resources than that right now, right? So that's where we're coming from, right? And as we move to 10 blocks per second, definitely the resources jump up a little bit, but the core contributors are really focused on optimizing that as much as possible. So, when I look at, the 10 blocks per second nodes, I think for in my testing and from what I've learned, you need definitely about 6 to 8 gigs of RAM. I think that the initial block sync will freeze if you have any less than 8 gigs, but then after that, it drops down to a much lower amount of requirement speed. So, and look, to put it in perspective though, even that 8 gigs of RAM, a quad core processor, and 300 to 500 gigs of storage for a standalone node is really not much at all. And so when you put it in perspective of what the other projects out there require for their node offering, it is still so minuscule. It's nothing, right? So yeah, there is going to be some requirement increasing in certain requirements, but I think if you zoom out and you compare it to the other projects, it is still super, super, super approachable and something that most people have lying around on their old hardware in their house anyway.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah, I don't think there's a staking requirement. I know for Ethereum, there was a huge staking requirement to run a node
32,
because I thought
32
about it.
Ethereum, crazy.
Yeah, I thought about it. I was like, I can't afford that. But yeah, I
Definitely
definitely
not.
need to update my Caspa node. I had an old
Yeah,
one,
look, it's it's
but I
um
might.
it's easy. Kaspa NG. Jump on their website, download the software, play around with it. It also comes with a beautiful visualizer that you can use and a wallet if you want to use it as well. But yeah, play around with it.
Nice.
Yeah, I had the old
Lavendi.
one, and I was.
Oh,
Go ahead, sir.
Hey,
Yeah, I had the old one. I
Lavendi.
was
Hey,
running it
thanks for
on the
joining.
old desktop.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, cool.
I need to update that desktop. I might get it back going again.
Yeah. Yeah, Lavendi blockchain banter Monday nights. Tune in. And Chris,
Yeah, awesome.
did Chris Hutchinson, did he have his interview with you to become a Caspa ambassador, or did you start around the same time?
So, unfortunately, I did not get the brilliant honor of interviewing Chris. That was a little bit. I think he joined just shortly after me. But definitely, if anyone is not aware, Chris and the guys from Blockchain Banter do amazing work. So definitely check them out. Lavendi is launching his new media company soon. I think it is Crumpet Media. So I'm sure there's going to be some exciting things coming out of that side. And yeah, definitely check them out.
I picked up my crumbs today. If anybody's not aware, you can pick up 10,000 crumbs every day from Crumpet Media to your wallet, and basically it's going to be a media platform, isn't it? If you like somebody's story, you can tip them Crumpet. So it's a good idea. See
So
how it goes.
British, so British.
Crumpets,
Crumpets.
yeah.
Crumpet. Crumpet. No, I picked up some crumbs because I want to support the guys, get in there, see what they're gonna put out to the community, and that's the beauty, right? People are starting to just kind of branch out and say, I've seen all these other people doing this. Why can't I? And so they're going to build their own things, their own media companies and whatever. It's awesome. So cool. Good work, guys.
That's for Cat Daddy, but he's gone. I missed Friday night Cask Cocktails. He did a live stream last night where he was having a drink and just just a casual thing. It was good. I went into it.
Cool.
Crypto Times 101. Kaspa is fast enough to have smart contracts as a layer 2. Smart contract is computational heavy, so you have the best of both worlds with minimal delays because the layer 1 sequencer is so fast and efficient.
100% agree, definitely. And that's exactly the situation here. Rather than bloat the layer 1, we keep the sequencing lean and mean and fast and reliable, and we put that computational heavy layer onto the layer 2s. But the beauty is that they are in constant communication with the layer 1, and so everything goes to the layer 1 first in sort of a base roll-up sort of view, and then goes to the layer 2. So Casper benefits, miners benefit, everyone benefits. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's the problem with Ethereum, isn't it? The base layer is too slow, so trans has to be done on this layer 2, is it? Or
Yeah, so I mean, I say this from the outside, but the way that I see Ethereum operating is definitely because of the speed or the lack thereof speed on Ethereum. They obviously have roll-ups to enable other networks to offer that speed to their users, but they build their own sequencer. And so if you imagine this, right, the concept is you have Ethereum, then you have your layer 2 on top of it. Now, the layer 1 is not fast enough to, allow their users to do insane speeds, right? Because what is it? There's only the speed is just not fast enough, right? So you have the layer 2 build their own sequencer, which is essentially guaranteeing the series of events when they occurred and who did what, blah blah blah. And then they take all those events, they verify them themselves, their own sequencer, and then every so often, maybe once an hour, once a minute, once every 5 minutes, whatever, they send those transactions, those events bundled into one transaction back to the layer 1. They send it there, and you might have a million transactions that occurred on the layer 2, right? But as far as the layer 1 is concerned, it just sees one transaction. And so when I say it has an element of kind of parasitic nature, it's basically the layer 2 is benefiting from building on top of Ethereum by using it, but it is not able to actually give back to the network because it's really only doing one thing every now and again, right? So yeah, that's my oversimplification of what is going on in the Ethereum ecosystem. And for a long time, they have definitely spoken about how they want to, have based rollups, which is the concept of having the layer 1 operate as the sequencer, and they remove the layer 2 sequencer. And the layer 2 just operates as computational layer, but they just haven't achieved that yet. So, it remains to be seen.
okay, Coder Stuff's back on. Kaspa should become the default and easy choice to build things on.
100% agree. It'll be the base layer, and what I love to say, the ultimate sequencer, the ultimate layer 1 sequencer that has enough throughput, enough capability for the entire crypto world to exist on top of. It might be a very grand view, and who knows if we'll see it in our lifetime, but that's at least what I think of Casper, and that's how I view it.
XRP is fool's gold. Some people don't like the name Sparkle.
Hey, well, I mean, the name is the name, but the tech is the tech underneath. So who cares, really? Call it whatever you want.
XRP is not going to make it. I think this is all coming in because I think somebody just posted XRP on its own earlier.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, could Sparkle be more masculine?
I don't know. That's up to you, Adam. You're welcome to give it your own name. That's fine.
Cas is so special. The technology and the fair launch is the best out there. That's Caspa Queen.
Yeah, that's a cool point, and I'll just point that out that I'm not trying to advocate for people to go and focus on Bitcoin, do as you please, but in the Bitcoin world, these little things called what I mentioned earlier, it's a bit axe, right? I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but they call it a lottery miner. Right. And the reason it's a lottery miner is it has a very, very, very small amount of hash rate because they've literally extracted a single chip off a hash board. And so to put in perspective, a Bitcoin miner has maybe 3 hash boards, and on each hash board is maybe 50 chips, right? So you can imagine that one chip has a very, very small amount of hash rate power. They've harvested that and they've placed it onto their own single board computer like this, and it just mined with a very, 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 very low amount of resources. And so essentially what that is, they call it a lottery miner because it uses a couple of watts of energy, but the potential is that it might hit a block. And so I think in the last 12 months or so, there's been a couple of bit axes that have hit blocks, right? And the chances of that, I remember I spoke to Shy about this, and he started like, it's like watching like the Rain Man. His brain starts going off into thinking about numbers and stuff like that. He's like, the chances of it happening is this insanely difficult, but the chances of that happening on Casper is super, super, super appealing, right? So again, any smart individuals out there in the community who could look at the BitAxe project, which is completely open source, and look at how we could adopt that for Casper, definitely go check it out. The hardware is open source, the software is open source. If there's a way that we can adopt some of those methods and utilize that to create some open source Casper miners, then let's do it. So yeah, thought I'd shout that out.
Kaspa will be the first technology to prevent manipulation in high frequency trading. It can prevent HFT from exploiting order flow. This is revolutionary in all finance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the speed is something that has always been a huge factor with traditional finance. So even like back in the day, right, where you had the stock exchange, right? So you had the stock exchange where obviously things are traded, but you would have a series of traders who connect to that stock exchange via computers who are outside of the exchange, right? And so they'll be trading with their computers. And so essentially, there has to be to ensure that the trades are executed in the right order at the right time. The speed is critical, right? So it's critical for a trader using a terminal to be able to execute trades at the same sort of time as everyone else. And so with Casper, because of the throughput, because of the blocks arriving currently every second and soon 10 times a second, the speed and the finality will make it so that hopefully in the future, which is kind of what I believe my understanding, my simplified understanding of a lot of the interest in the very, very high block rate of 50 blocks per second, maybe even 100 blocks per second, is to really combat that MEV issue, that issue where people can see the orders of things being placed, and with bots or machine learning, they can trade against that to benefit themselves. So 100% agree. There's going to be a lot of amazing things that are going to be built on top of that, and yeah, couldn't agree more. That's it. MEV resistance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dreamcast was the best.
Definitely, I love it. I love Dreamcast. I love my retro gaming. I have a bunch of game consoles, so definitely agree with you there. Dreamcast is awesome. So yeah.
One last question. What real world use cases will drive Kaspa's mass adoption? Thank you for all the answers.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you for all the questions. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, Bashar, or Bachar. I'm sorry. Either way. Look, what can drive the real world use cases for Casper? So it comes back to what I kind of keep harping on about. I see Casper as the base layer that anyone can build on top of. And so any real world case that people have traditionally looked at crypto, looked at a blockchain, a DLT, and said, okay, we want to build on top of this. But there's particular reasons why we can't. So, some people might be looking to build something that needs ultimate decentralization and censorship resistance, and needs speed. But, traditionally they've looked back at other projects, maybe Bitcoin, and said, well, it has the decentralization, it has the security, but it doesn't have the speed, right? And so people have looked at other projects out there and vice versa, and ultimately seen all that. Casper comes along and really nails all of those requirements. And it enables people who have maybe traditionally who are from the Web 2 world and looked at how can I build something on top of crypto, but they've found one reason or another that they couldn't build on top of it. And so Casper's mass adoption will be driven by the fact that people can build anything that they can think of. And so the really, really, really cool notion of that is nowadays it's actually a lot more real than people think, because development has become so accessible for the average person. Like even someone who doesn't understand how to develop things can go leverage AI using like Cursor or some other platform like that and create things that are in their mind that they've dreamt of that maybe they didn't know how to execute. And so I think we're at a really interesting crossroads where the technology is at the point that can enable internet-like speed on crypto, but also the ability and accessibility for people to actually build on top of it makes it just insane. And so, again, it comes back to my little crystal ball of what I think is going to happen. But I think that there's going to be a lot of building, and I think a lot of it is hopefully going to happen on Casper.
Somebody is sticking up for Aspect. Shout out to Aspect. He's so capable. He can name it whatever he wants.
Aspect is absolutely amazing, and when I met him in person in Australia, we had many chats that went on for hours with him, expressing his passion for not only Casper but nurturing and helping new developers to learn how to program. Right, like I'm not a developer. I moonlight as a developer sometimes and play around with things and try to have fun, which is ultimately what everyone should be doing. But he really is passionate about educating other developers, and so I think in his spare time is looking at how can I bring up the next generation of developers. So definitely, if you ever see him, ask him about it. You better have a lot of time, because he will spend a long time talking about it. And I think that's for good reason, because it's really the lifeblood of what drives him. So definitely love Anton. He's an absolute pillar of the community. So definitely cool.
Cool. Casper Queen. I love the name Sparkle.
Definitely. Yeah, it's awesome.
You rock. We all need more sparkle in our lives. It's just a slagging competition going on. Queens would like sparkle. What's the difference between proof of stake and Visa? Visa is
Famous?
it famous?
Maybe?
Make money.
Visa and make money?
Men don't like sparkle.
Yeah, I don't know what the problem is with the sparkle. I'm missing that whole sparkle kind, like
Hey,
sparkles.
man, look, if it makes us talk about it, then it's already winning. Like
Yeah.
marketing or, this type of approach is getting that into the psyche of people, right? And so right now we have a whole host of people, whether you like it or not, who are thinking about Sparkle and going, wow, it is this thing that's coming with Casper, and they're going to remember it. So, whether you like it or not, you're talking about it right now. So it's cool.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win with the sparkle name. I just don't understand
Yeah,
why. But hey,
I
to each
don't,
his own, I
I
guess.
think,
Sparkle
yeah.
or no sparkle.
You probably know what he's talking about there, do you?
Yeah, so it actually is using ESP. So it's ESP32, I believe it is. So it's not actually a Raspberry Pi, but it's very similar. It is a single board, computer, and it essentially enables people to take the chip and put it onto that board, and yeah, it's cool.
I actually saw it today on somebody's YouTube channel where they're creating one for Bitcoin. So yeah, if I could, I don't know, break open one of those KS zeros, and maybe we can try using those boards. See if we can kind of figure it out. I'm not real good
Yeah,
with
I
the soldering part, but I can hack and break and damage for days. So if it takes me months to figure it out, I got plenty of
yeah.
hardware sitting around. So I might give it a try.
I definitely want to encourage people, because I think there is some miners that, the older ones that are going to be looking at their retirement schedule, right? And maybe, the KS ones, particularly, who are probably quite low hash rate and high energy usage, that are going to be looking for a new home. And that was really one of the benefits of the BitAxe project, which, really, really awesome that they built that. And I think one of the main contributors is a guy by the name of Scott. He has basically enabled people to take old hardware and repurpose that hardware. And so I definitely would love to see that on the Kaspa network. If there's any brilliant minds out there, reach out to me. Let's try and make this happen. But otherwise, yeah, it'd be cool to see it happen.
Cool. Can't say the TPH and 920. I work for Boeing and I'm pushing aviation to build its value chain, supplies, manufacturing, energy, transport, logistics on Kaspa.
Cool. Keep it up, man. That's how we make a difference in the community. Like, if you see an opportunity for Casper to add value to your business, to your organization, to your foundation, to whatever, get out there and do it. You don't need to ask permission. You don't need to see if Mr. Sompolinski will give you authority to go do this or do that. You just go do it. And so, yeah, love it, man. Keep it up.
Thanks, Luke. We got to the end of the questions. BTM, do you have any more questions? We let Luke go.
No. I mean, that's pretty good. We got a lot of information in these
It
past two
is.
hours. I guess we could set up the next one for the smart contracts. I don't want you guys to open up that rabbit hole of smart contracts and go for another 30 minutes or hour. So I guess we can probably just start that on the next. I guess we can do Sundays, pull in some more of the ambassador team, unless you're available for another Sunday meetup, because this is a lot of really good information and a lot of people are new to the project. So they have some understanding, but not a lot, right? So we could bring a lot of those guys on and just let them listen and kind of get caught up on the project.
Definitely. Look, I love to join you guys. You're running a great space here with the community, and yeah, happy to jump in anytime if there's any value that I can add.
Thanks, Luke. We have one more question sneaked in there. I had a question. Will Sparkle lower the slippage costs when swapping through Tangent on the 1.5 smart contracts?
Um, I don't really know how to answer that question, because it's kind of got a few elements there, and it's what tangent slippage costs. I unfortunately do not have the answer to this, and I'm not really quite 100% sure what the question is, but let's wait and see. That's my answer.
Okay. Well, one more question. Crescendo, is it going to be the end of April or the start of May, do you think? Any inside information, any alpha there before you go?
I mean, from what I've heard, it's just what is it, Cast.live? There's that countdown that Caspador has made, and currently looking at 44 days for the hard fork. I think that is pretty accurate, from what I've heard. Maybe I'm not saying like 44 days, 14 hours, 29 minutes, and 6 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do think that that's pretty accurate. I think that's what I've heard that the amazing contributors are working towards. So, we've got, I think, the mainnet release coming in. I'm looking at it right now, so I don't just have this like photographic memory, but I think in 14 days is the mainnet release, and what that does is that brings with it the code that will activate the hard fork later on, Okay, so get the mainnet release out there. All the nodes will update their software. And then, that'll put into the network fork will occur. And we'll see that lovely little that little graphic that appears that says 10 blocks per second activated. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think it was, Fish Tuna, Ilal, is that how you say his name?
IL, yeah, I think. I'm not sure. Sorry,
Yeah,
IL, yeah.
yeah. It's the only network that changes. It doesn't shut down. It does it live, isn't it? It goes from 1 block to 10 blocks per second live without stopping, without skipping a beat, isn't it?
I mean, I to be honest, I'm not aware of any other network that have increased the speed. At least definitely not for proof of work in the way that is going to be achieved here. I'd love to learn about others if there is, but as far as I'm aware, Casper is the only proof of work network that is essentially turning up the speed on the network. So yeah, it's a huge event. It is absolutely huge. So definitely monumental, the amount of work that the core team and the contributors and everyone involved that are put into it. And we're going to be seeing history in the making. So yeah, get excited.
Yeah,
It is very
even with
exciting.
the KRC-20 deployment, I don't think the network slowed down, right? I remember people talking about it. I know the fees increased drastically. We like that. But I don't think it slowed down or crashed or anything. Somebody was
So
talking about
so
that previously on one of the lives.
So definitely, so Casper has never stopped creating blocks. There has never been since launch, as far as I'm aware. There has never been a situation where blocks have not been created. I don't believe. But in those situations where, for example, when the KRC-20 launch occurred, there was some technology that existed on the outside of the Casper network, like wallets and maybe exchanges that weren't, maybe no exchanges because they weren't trading in KRC-20 yet, but there was infrastructure that needed to potentially update its code or change its code. And so one of those examples was, a certain wallet that had some code in it that just wasn't kind of set up correctly, and that's totally fine. And people do code all the time, and it just meant that from a visual perspective, people weren't able to purchase KRC-20 tokens or something like that. But when you look at the actual network underlying everything, the blocks keep getting created, and the network still functions as normal. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that was
Um,
like the wallet. There was a third-party wallet that had a problem, but the other wallets were working consistently during that process. So I don't think it was the
Definitely.
network. I think it was just that particular wallet.
It's
I don't want to call them out. I know who it was, but I'm just gonna keep it cool. But yeah,
it's fine.
everything else worked because people were talking about the network went down. It's like I'm still getting tokens, right? I'm still deploying or minting. I'm still minting.
Exactly.
So it worked.
Still mining, still seeing the blocks, still seeing them tick over. That is literally the example of a decentralized network. You have to take the good with the bad, and the bad is the fact that sometimes standalone developers who are doing their own thing, which is amazing because without developers the community wouldn't exist. But they're doing their own thing, they're building their own thing, and it's whether or not you want to place your trust in them as a third party that's building for Casper, not building the actual Casper code base with what you do. And so, things will happen. We'll break a few eggs for those sort of external projects that build on top of Casper. But the main takeaway is that the main network, Casper, the core protocol, the blocks keep getting created at one every second, and soon 10 every second. So yeah.
I have one more question for you, Luke, and I'll let you go. It's another probably a crystal ball question, but crescendo and smart contracts. Like, do you think there's people lined up to leave other chains and come over to build on Caspa, or that are waiting to do it, waiting for all this to happen, or do you think it'll be like more a gradual over time kind of thing?
Look, I think anecdotally, I have spoken to different projects over the last year who have taken a bit of a view of Casper. They've looked at it, as somewhere that maybe they want to move. Like I spoke to a project a while back who was literally moving away from Ethereum. They were EVM. They were done with what they had seen on that network, and they were looking for a new home. Now, unfortunately, timelines didn't line up with them for them to kind of look at Kaspa as being their new home. But I think that is not an isolated situation. There's going to be a lot of people from other communities who are going to look at Kaspa, and they might take a couple of different approaches and look at how they where they want their new home to be. And I really, really, really think that Kaspa is going to be that new home. And 100% agree. I just had a message from the man himself, Mr. Coder of Stuff. Sorry to kind of force this in here, but we expect to be on time for release end of March. Activation end of April / early May. So definitely he's personally pushing for end of April. So that you heard it here from the man himself, the Coder of Stuff. That's the timeline.
That's great. That's massive alpha at the end there. Brilliant.
Yeah, that was perfect timing. Perfect.
Yeah.
Huge shout out to Coder. He attends all of the spaces, always see him around, taking part in the community and getting involved. So love your work, man, and keep it up. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Thanks, Luke, for coming on. I hope you'll come back on again. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope we can keep it. Apologies for keeping you 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Mate, I totally am fine to talk about Kaspa. As you could tell, I could probably talk about Kaspa underwater. So don't you worry. And I'm sorry if I have waffled on for too long during this space. But yeah, thank you for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure.
No, it's brilliant. No, I appreciate it, Luke. Thanks for coming on and talking to us, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks everybody for watching as well in the comments.
Thanks, everyone. Been a pleasure.
Right.